just do it with Miami Dolphins.
The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Ramsey, the Dolphin touchdown.
Throwing deep upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown! Looking deep, he's got a man! Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep! He's got it for the touchdown! He's in! Touchdown! Tell me if you want to see it.
Tagovailoa trying to pick up for it. Fire to the end zone. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. 1, 2, 3, hit! Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. Let's start it off with a big shout out and a thank you to David Figley for the $5 donation. He says, best Dolphins content creator on YouTube, period. I appreciate that, my friend. Also, shout out to the other best content creator on YouTube, Doug Lee Durong, for showing me some love in that video a couple days ago. I appreciate you, homie. You already know what time it is, man. Me and you got this, Doug. Don't worry. We got this, bro. Wow. So, a bit to talk about, today? So, some good, some bad. So, let's get into it. Just a few quick updates, all right? I've heard Nick Needham's most likely gone, all right? If anyone's wondering, you know, and I have heard, obviously, Minnesota sniffing around heavily around Nick Needham, but I have heard it looks like Nick Needham, he might be gone. And then the other one I've heard, and this might sadden some people, and it saddens me, is that unless we're moving Cedric Wilson, the likelihood of Trent Sherfield coming back is slim, I was told. So, unless he's prepared to take some uber-friendly team deal, and he's 28, he did enough work to go get his bag, it looks like the Cedric Wilson edition, if we can't move him, it's going to bite us in the long run, and we'll lose a fantastic player like that. So if we cannot move Cedric Wilson, it looks like Trent Sherfield is gone. So just two quick little player updates that I've heard. I could do one of those live updates. Maybe I'll do it next year for the Patreon. It crossed my mind to do it this year, but So I'll do it one next year, more than likely. We'll do a live update every day. That'll update as the day goes on. I'll make a post on Patreon and update, and I'll do the same on the community tab for members. But more so, I've just been taking stuff in, updating you guys when I get live in front of the camera here. If people have asked me stuff in the DMs, I've hit them back, right? Like I had someone hit me up yesterday saying, are we getting Chancey Gardner-Johnson and Dalvin Cook? And this is what I told them yesterday, and it's turned out to be fruition today, that all I had heard yesterday is that had to be checked in on Cook, and there was nothing close to being done. I literally sent that text to the person. I mean, I could screenshot the text and show you guys. It was at 9 o'clock last night. And then today, the Cook market went the way it did with the Dolphins, and it played out just the way I told this person yesterday. Chancey Gardner-Johnson, listen, and we'll talk Poyer here a little bit here. There's no chance. Chancey Gardner-Johnson is looking to make more money than Jesse Bates. Right now, the Dolphins, before we get the numbers, the actual contract numbers, like, they won't come out till later tonight, to add towards the cap of Wilson and Mostert, we only had a little over $17 million heading into today. So, I'm hearing Chancey Gardner-Johnson is looking between $17 to $20 million a year. Bates made $16 million a year. So, and I think it's going to fall more in that $18, $19 million range for Chancey Gardner-Johnson. Not going to happen. He'd be perfect. Not going to happen. So, even if he was willing to take a little bit of a discount because of state income tax off that down to 15, 16, I don't see it. Reason why I don't see it is because, like I told my YouTube channel members, the numbers I've heard for Jordan Poyer have been between $7 and $9 million. from multiple people. And I've heard it from even more people since I said that, since I posted that video. And if anyone wants to know what I've heard on Poyer, this is what I've heard. I looked into Poyer yesterday because if you remember, a report came out from someone credible, I forget who, in the middle of the day. It was about an hour and a half before the Raiders pivoted. And, I was being asked about Cook, and I was being told, hey, no, like, run linebackers are priority, and that's what they ended up signing and stuff. And so with Cook, and then, I started looking into Poyer a little bit because I'm like, okay, what's going on with this? And then, because I had seen an update that there was mutual interest between the Raiders and Poyer. I forget who posted it, but it was someone credible. Like, it wasn't Diana Rossini, but like someone like that. And so then I started checking into it, and from what I know, the Ramsey, and I did this after the Ramsey trade and the update. From what I know, the Ramsey trade never changed the interest from the Dolphins side and Poyer side to coming here. All it changed from the standpoint is Poyer's now more of a luxury than a pressing need. That was the change. So I said in that post on Sunday night or whatever that we are not going to get into a bidding war. All right? So then when I saw the Raiders pivot to Marcus Epps, and I think they paid Marcus Epps like 2 years, $12 million, so like $6. I started thinking to myself, like, is Poyer asking for more? Because if he was asking for $7 to $9 million, you only got to come up a few $1 million a year on Epps, and obviously you do that. And from what I heard yesterday and what I've heard today, I know there's a tweet going around about a verbal agreement. I've not heard anything about a verbal agreement, but let me tell you this. If I and other people I know have known the numbers for like over a week, then surely the Dolphins have. So I've been told just to sit tight on Poyer. Nothing's changed. There's still mutual interest, And so, because the Dolphins have options with Poyer. Poyer is very interested in coming here. They could literally wait till you could sign him after June 1st. He could literally be a June 1st edition. We have $13 million coming off the cap on June 1st. And guess what? Only $3 million of that is going to be for our draft class. That's the Poyer money right there, if you think about it, because you got to be cap compliant by the start of the new year. I don't expect a Poyer move to happen until after 4 p.m. tomorrow when the new league year opens. But I do think there still is mutual interest. I do think, from what I'm understanding, he's still willing to take a reasonable hit to come here. So I do think Poyer's... listen, when I say nothing's changed, what have I told you that I feel like that I've been told in the sense I'm getting is Poyer's coming down the pipeline. So when I tell you nothing's changed on that. I have not been told the Dolphins are out on Poyer or they've moved on from Poyer by any stretch of the imagination. But again, you got to also remember, he's no longer a pressing need because of Ramsey. He's now a luxury. So they're going to fill their stuff out. They're going to make the moves they want to make. And they're just probably telling, well, not probably, what I'm being told, tell Poyer to sit tight. You remember, the Poyer move now because of the Ramsey trade is going to happen at the Dolphins' accord, not at Poyer's accord. If someone comes in on Monday and starts, like I said on Sunday, I got a feeling that someone's going to try and outbid them. And then when I saw the Raiders do what they did with no income tax, I was like, I've asked and I have not got confirmation that Poyer's telling teams, no, I'm waiting. I've asked and I have not got confirmation on that. So, I don't know. By all sounds of it, it sounds like this is where his head and his heart is at. Now, another thing happened last night, and this is what people need to be on the lookout for. The Bills cleared a bunch of space. And if they come in and they overbid for Poyer, the Dolphins are going to say, go get your bag. We're not going to match that. So the Bills are what you got to watch too. They're probably going to come hard for Poyer right now, all because of why. They've already lost Tremaine. They've already lost Leslie Frazier. So, another thing today, too, it just happened within the last half hour. Caleb McGarry finally got, just when I literally started looking into why the market hasn't moved on him, I started telling people I was going to look into it. As I start to look into it, the deal happens. So there you go. Man, that's a move. That's the move you make instead of Poyer. I mean, compared to what Jawan Taylor got, compared to what the market was going on out here, what McGlinchey got. I mean, Trey Pipkins re-signed with the Chargers today for 3 years, $7.25 million per year. All right? Caleb McGarry re-signs with Atlanta for 3 years, $34.5 million. I mean, that is a very reasonable hit, no? $11.5 million? And either one of those guys isn't, and I checked it, and I'm getting the sense, I'm being told, that we're not going to add anything more than a second-tier guy at tackle. Unless someone falls in our lap in the draft, they are not going to add anything more because they are, and I've been telling you the Patreons, I've been telling the channel, and I've been telling you up here, they're going to give AJ another shot. And another thing that's coming to fruition, I've told the Patrons, I've told you guys up here too, and just as a general thing I was told about free agency, a general approach, and now we see it happening. Remember what I told you guys and what I warned you guys. There was a couple things I warned you guys. To temper your expectations on running back, right? We've seen how that's played out. And I also told you guys quantity over quality. And I said, this does not mean they're going to get jabronis, but look at how they're spending their money and they're spreading their money around. It's and they're telling, we read it yesterday, what Barry Jackson told everyone, what he's hearing from an agent. They're telling everyone, we don't got money to spend. Like we saw the financials of the Mike White. Look at how much Andy Dalton got. Andy Dalton got $8 million a year. And what were we told? Barry Jackson told all y'all, an agent for a quarterback said they're not willing to allocate that kind of money there. And I told you guys, I heard that was Gardner Minshew. So, I mean, this is, oh no, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not calling anyone out at all. This is, I'm just using an example as someone I was talking, because you asked me about it. This was just how it's going. Because I see, like, man, and I said this yesterday privately to someone. I see, I've been keeping to myself a lot more. And, I've just been seeing people, like, just overly setting themselves up for disappointment with the running back room. And I've been trying to tell people for, like, 2 weeks now. What I've been hearing. They're going to run it back. And they're going to draft a guy and add him to the room. What did they do? So, I don't know, man. The good thing is AJ and Eichenberg, it's got to be addressed in a year. And if you want my opinion, this is Chris Grier continuing to put his thumb. This is continuing to meddle. Because we got restructures we can make. And moves we can make. I mean, you could trade Cedric Wilson and make a couple more restructures, and you could free up like another 15 to 20 million here. I think if people are going to be mad that we weren't in on, that we didn't make, listen, I think if people are mad that we didn't sign McGarry at that cost, I think you have a legitimate beef with that. I'll say this as much as I won't stand for Chris Grier slander because he's done a great job, but I'm not blind. The misses at the offensive line, they've been very, very, very obvious. So he's going to end up having to fix it. I don't know what else to say. Listen. I'm at the point where, what are we doing at tight end? Unless we get a cheap, reasonable guy, expect the draft. I'm expecting them to draft. I'm expecting tight end at 51, the way this is all playing out. So, I mean, we'll see. But, the tight end market, I mean, look at this right now. Darren Waller got had for a third round pick today. And Gesicki, I mean, where's this market, this robust market? Everyone told me he was top 10. Well, the market sure ain't sounding like he's top 10 tight end in the NFL right now. But, we're going to see a lot more movement tomorrow after 4 p.m. when the new league year opens up. Eugene, we can't trade Gesicki. Gesicki's a free agent. So, and I think they looked at the metrics. If you look at the metrics, with the running game, it's been more so about attempts, right? So that's really what it's come down to. It's come down to a lack of commitment. When they've committed, we've seen results. It's been really more of a lack of commitment. So, and that's going to come down to our coaching staff. Yeah, listen, Caleb McGarry, you're getting one of the better run blocking right tackles, an above average pass pro guy. Man, at that price, man, I don't see how you don't toy around with that idea. It just would have made too much sense. That's a cheap fix. And, here's my whole stance, okay? Here's my whole stance with Eichenberg and Jackson. I'm fine if they want to give him another shot, but I want one of them starting. I don't want 2 weak links. I'm fine with 1 weak link. Put him in a battle with Lester Cotton and Robert Jones for the left guard position. Best man wins. You want to throw Dieter in the battle too? Knock yourself out. But if our offensive line was McGarry, Hunt, Connor Williams, enter Jabroni here, and then Armstead, I still think we're a top 15 offensive line because Jabroni's going to be stuck between Armstead and Connor Williams. So they'll mask a lot of deficiencies. I'm just saying. That's where I'd be at. Not sitting here, listen, I keep telling you all this, and it's not just about Tua, it's about everyone. The NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. What has Austin Jackson and Eichenberg done for us lately? Nothing but going to the drugstore and buying the biggest bottle of aspirin we can find after watching their play. Maybe a little bleach to throw in the eyes too. Sure, Eichenberg started to look like he was maybe turning a corner before he got injured, but then he came back and what was it? An SHIT show. Austin Jackson. What has he been since the first 6 weeks of his NFL career? An SHIT show. He's fallen in line. That man was my 10th rated offensive tackle. And he's sure playing out like he was my 10th rated offensive tackle, no? Everyone, I love the story. I love the bone marrow transfusion. How does that translate to a good football player? Someone explain this to me. Man, people get caught up on the story and the player, and they totally neglect the play on the field. For what? Man. Even there was a reason why I did not commit to Tua Tagovailoa as a franchise quarterback until this year. Why? Because I saw his ceiling. What was I saying after 2020 and 2021? As much as people want to tell you I was a Tua-neer. Well, he's shown me flashes and he's put on tape that if you surround him with the right personnel and you surround him with a competent offensive staff, you might have a franchise quarterback on your hands. You might. Because we still hadn't seen any sense of his ceiling yet. Then this year we saw his ceiling after they did exactly what I said for them to do, might I add. And boom! All right? But at least he had flashed and given me tape, and at least he had given me, okay, I see it. I see what you got to do around him. I see his play. I see his style. I see what he fits in. That's why when people say, I want to see him in New Orleans on the Sean Payton, I said, no. If this man goes under a Shanahan offense, watch out. Here we are. And that's why, remember, why did I want in 2021 Mike McDaniel as our offensive coordinator? I wanted Mike McDaniel or Pep Hamilton. Because Pep Hamilton was a legit quarterback whisperer, and Mike McDaniel was going to bring over Shanahan's offense. Lo and behold. So what I'm sitting here is Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg have given what? What? Maybe a handful of more flashes than Noah Igbenogany has? And with the staff we have in place, there's either two things at play. Either, and every NFL coach or any coach at any level, high school, Pee, whatever, they're stubborn and they have an ego to them. And even if they seem like the nicest guy in the world, you'll eventually figure it out. So we're either into two situations here. Greer and Garfinkel, I'm so used to packaging them together. Greer continues to have his thumb on those two guys because of what he invested in them draft-wise. Or our staff is arrogant enough where they think they can make it work. Now, why do I lean more towards Greer? I'll tell you why. How quickly did Mike McDaniel turn around and tell Greer, send that boy Chase Edmonds out that door right now? How quickly? And that was one of McDaniel's first big acquisitions as our head coach. And he was quick to admit his mistake of, nope, not going to work. Get gone. Go get me Jeff Wilson instead. Thank you very much. Right? How quickly was he ready to just fix that? Right? That makes me think it's, as Jay-Z, one of his greatest songs off Reasonable Doubt, one of the top 10 albums of all time in the hip-hop genre, politics as usual. All right? That's it. That's all it is. It's politics at play. I've been saying it. There was politics at play with Poyer and Crossman. And we saw eventually, right? And what did I say? McDaniel had to build some cachet, get to the playoffs so he could walk in and say, okay, now I played your game. Now I want to play my game. I want to bring my guy in. And what did he get? That's why I'd been on the Fangio news for over a year and a half, because I was hearing last offseason how hard he was pressing for Fangio, and eventually he got his guy. And I think it's going to eventually happen with the offensive line, and now the timing is just working out. They're saying, hey, if we can get the depth right and we can get the pieces we're allowed to work on right, we can get by another year with them, and then I'll get my guys in here. That's what it feels like to me. Now, I do know the 49ers were also a little high on Eichenberg during the draft process, so we'll see how that plays out. But, you know, being high on a player through the draft process to watching them play out in the NFL, a totally different ballgame. I hope Fins draft an OT and a tight end where the draft is deep. Thoughts on next free agent you would like to see other than your guy Poyer? I wouldn't spend money on Poyer. I think that's just where it's going to go. Your show is awesome. Thank you, Philip. Listen, if Poyer's coming at me and saying $7-8 million, I'm saying thank you very much because you're such a deal. Let's go. That's just too good of a deal to pass up. And I'm only signing him for a 2-year deal. If he wants 3, I'll give him a 3rd-year team option. I control whether I activate that, all right? Because you're 31, all right? That's number 1. Number 2, my next free agent, who would I like? I would like another linebacker. I want a Drew Tranquill, an A.J. Johnson. I want to add another guy who's scheme familiar. My apologies. Scheme familiar. That's what I want. Now, if that ends up being a safety that's a free agent right now because they find someone better, who's a better scheme fit and he's a little cheaper and he makes more sense financially, then okay, I'm down for that. But I do want something like that. I want another linebacker. Because listen, I'm at the point with Jerome Baker. I'm ready to make him compete. Right? Now, Jerome Baker's money comes guaranteed on Friday. You know, and again, I get why they keep with Jerome Baker. But if you go find someone who's scheme familiar, You know, Kenny Young's still out there too. You go find someone that's scheme familiar, who makes sense and is not going to break the bank. You go add them, whether it's at safety or linebacker, right? Because there are a few safeties out there, you know, that do make sense when it comes to adding, right? So we'll see. We will see. Another one too here. Okay, hold on a sec here. Let's see. You know, that's just. I mean, that's. I just want another guy who can just make the easy transition and can just shore it up a little bit. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. So, and, you know, a guy who makes sense right now, who's out on the open market, is Nasir Adderley. You know? What if they go add a Nasir Adderley? Because you could probably add him for, you know, $5-6 million. Scheme familiarity. Plop him in there with Holland, right? If you want to go a little bit cheaper than Poyer and a guy who works, you know, that makes sense. You know, there are options out there. Now, I know people want Bobby Wagner or Levante David. Brother, sign me up all day. Sign me up all day. But we've seen how this has gone so far. Can we sit here and say with confidence they're going to spend... Now, I was told before free agency start, and I added this to the Patreon and the community member tab if you're a member or you're a patron. You know, I did hear they would be willing to, on a reasonable deal, they'd be willing to stretch as far as Bobby Wagner. Now, I'm going to tell you, right? Shout out to $20 from 1017, man. Tight end options in free agency. Foster Moreau makes a lot of sense. He's cheap. I just wanted to cover this, though, before we get into tight ends for a sec. You know, a thing that's holding up Bobby Wagner, Dalton Schultz is going to be too expensive. A thing that's holding up Bobby Wagner is Bobby Wagner loves playing on the West Coast. That's why he talked to Seattle. That's why you saw rumors about him talking, you know, it's not rumors. You saw reports about him talking to Seattle, but you haven't seen anything really other than people behind the scenes concrete about the Dolphins. You know, the Dolphins are very interested in Bobby Wagner. But they actually, from what I was told before free agency, they thought they had a better shot at landing a Levante David than a Bobby Wagner because of Bobby Wagner's desire to play on the West Coast. And you might get some guys to stick around. Now, tight end options. You know, I'm going to answer this question right here. So, obviously, everyone knows my favorite tight end option, free agent, is Foster Moreau, right? You got Josh Oliver's out there. You got Ross Dwelly. You know, Hayden Hurst is out there. But, you know, Hayden Hurst, I kind of think is on, on the not so good side of his career. And everyone knows it's been the deal. Foster Moreau is the guy that I like. So, but I think they're gonna go draft. I think they're gonna get Darnell Washington, Tucker Kraft, Zach Kuntz, or Sam Laporta. I think they're gonna get one of those four guys. That's what that's my gut feeling. Oh, is Josh Oliver gone now? Did he sign? He signed today. You like Irv Smith? Irv Smith's all right. Honestly, I'd be down to draft. Like, at the rate we're seeing at what's left. Listen, unless I'm not getting Foster or Morrow, go get Laporta, or go get Zach Kuntz, or go move up and get Washington. Just go get one of those guys, man. The rate we're going at here. you know, that's where I'm at. That's where my head is. Yeah, Josh Oliver's gone. I got to look it up. But, you know, there's even guards out there that they're not even, like, look at the guards that are still remaining. Obviously, Isaac Seumalo is still out there. Dalton Reisner, who are both on my target list. Gabe Jackson, Trey Turner are still out there. David Edwards, Will Hernandez. You know, there's still guard options out there, and they're just like, eh. You know what I mean? So, you know, I feel like that's going to be addressed in the draft. That's what I feel like is going to happen with tight end. It's going to get, you know, you got Durham Smythe in house. They still got Tanner Connor, right? So I think they're gonna draft one of those 4 guys. That's what I feel is going to happen. Now, they can go out and get Foster Moore for like $4 or $5 million a year, please, but I don't think so. I think Foster Moore is going to demand much more than that. So we'll see how it rolls. But let's get into this because if you guys haven't seen yet, they did restructure Jalen Ramsey's deal. And, man, you got to love a team player, huh? Got to love a team player hopping up, coming in here. Shout out to Dougly Do Wrong in the chat. Hope you're doing well, homie. You got to appreciate a guy coming, and this is the kind of stuff you want to see. Like, team player off the rip shows me you're all in and you're about that championship. And, you know, that's the sense I'm getting Poyer is. I'm getting the sense Poyer's waiting around for us, not the other way around. And he's waiting around for us because he knows where it goes. But I said, with the Buffalo clearing that cap, be careful. Anyways, so here is Ramsey's restructure. He was due to make $17 million in 2023, $18.5 million in 2024, and $19.5 million in 2025. Here are the new terms. The signing bonus is $8.835 million. His base salary this year is only going to be $1.165 million fully guaranteed. His 2024 offseason roster bonus is going to be $11 million fully guaranteed, and his base salary for next year is only going to be about $14.5 million fully guaranteed. 2025, his offseason roster bonus is going to be $4 million, and then his base salary is going to be about $15.5 million. The contract continues to include $2.5 million escalators for 2024 and 2025. That's key to watch. Before the trade, Ramsey had $5 million in fully guarantee remaining. After the trade, he now has $35.5 million in full guarantees. So the Dolphins also got some significant cap relief for 2023. Instead of having Ramsey for $17 million, his new cap number is $14.11. That's a reduction of $12.89 million. To make it happen, Ramsey gave up $7 million in cash this year, but he'll get it back next year. Listen, shout out to Jalen Ramsey and shout out to Tony for joining the Hall of Fame. Listen to me. That's massive. That's so huge, and look at how the numbers are being spread, because I'm going to tell you this right now. Xavier's coming off the books very soon. Right? That's the other key thing here, is they're setting it up. They're setting it up that they're going to be able to move with, because listen, Ramsey is cornerback 1. This is not even a question anymore. Okay? And I'm going to tell you this right now. You know, they save $23 million if they cut Xavier Howard next year, and they only have, right? They only have dead cap. Sorry. They save only $2.8 million, but they have $23.1 million in dead cap if they move off of him. So, you know, right now, Xavier Howard, he is not able to be moved off of post. But if they cut him post June 1st next year, they save $18.5 million, and they have a dead cap of 17.4, the same way they structured Byron. They've set themselves up where they can just cut them post June 1st. Or they can restructure him and they save a whole bunch of money. But how they're setting up, they're already 30 years old. I'm going to tell you this right now. All those escalators and everything kicks in 2024 for a reason. Because they're going to save that $18.5 million. Unless Xavier Howard is ridiculous this year, they're going to go to him next year and they're going to say, listen, we've given you, we did something no NFL team has done before. We restructured your money with a fresh new contract. We restructured your deal to get you more money. Now, the only way you're staying is if you play ball with us. And if you don't play ball with us, there's an $18.5 million number we like. So, you know, they have structured themselves where unless Xavier Howard is taking a team-friendly deal, man, we got all our picks next year. They might go corner next year in the first round and replace Xavier Howard after they save $18.5 million off of cutting him and designating him as a post-June 1st cut. And pair that with Ramsey. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But they've set this money up where they can move off Xavier Howard and we still got Ramsey. It's smart, man. Usually you replenish the position with a draft pick. They replenished Xavier Howard, cornerback 1, with the top corner in the NFL, who's a little younger. And they've just moved it down the line. And that's smart because next year you go draft the next corner you want to groom coming up behind Ramsey. Right? And then when that guy comes up for his money, Ramsey's going to be gone. It's smart. Now you can see the wheels are in motion and this team is starting to build. The wheels are in motion. There is no longer a sleeping overweight hamster sitting under the water bottle just sucking for drops of water. Now the hamster's in the wheel and it's in motion. So, smart stuff. This is how you build and sustain long-term contenders by these kind of moves. So, let's see how it all plays out, man. All right. So, obviously, today started off with Raheem Mostert being announced at about 11 a.m. today. 2-year, $5.6 million deal. Only $2.2 million guaranteed. Again, quantity over quality. I've been telling y'all this. And, guys, listen. I get the frustration that all y'all worked yourselves up over one of the big ticket items. I get it. But look at that deal. How can you argue that deal? 2 years with only $2.2 million guaranteed? I can already tell. I don't even need to see the numbers when they come out tonight. That guy's going to you're going to be able to move off Mostert after after this season, I guarantee you. It's essentially going to be like a 1-year deal with a second-year team option, essentially. So I don't know how people can hate on that, especially when, guys, was I the only one who saw how Raheem the Dream was playing last year? It came down to opportunities. Look at him in the Buffalo game. Come on, man. And I said this all last season, it still didn't look like he was back to 100%. It looked like he got going at about 80-85% to start the season, and then the season obviously took its toll. Now, I think this year you're going to see that explosiveness back. I think now he's probably fully recovered from that injury. Right? You could tell he wasn't at 100%. You know, you could tell he wasn't even at 90% last year. So, listen, how can you complain at that cap hit? It was about opportunities last year. It was not about the players. If anything, improve the offensive line and watch them take off even more. Now, and we'll get to it in a second, you could make more of an argument for the second guy we brought back today because he did slow down a little bit at the end there. And I will give you that. But I don't want to hear no Raheem the Dream slander. That man did his thing, please. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've been warning y'all for weeks that they were going to run it back. But I've also been telling you, and why do you think my first big board to come out was the running back? They're going to add a running back in this draft process. You watch. This man averaged 4.9 yards per attempt, though. 892 yards on 181 carries. So that tells me if you would have made him your lead back and given him 200-plus yards, if you would have given him about 225 carries, like he was your number one guy, he probably would have finished with about 1,100 yards. Right? Let's do the math real quick for you guys. All right? Because usually your number one gets about 225, right? So 225. He would have finished with 1102. So, if he would have got 225 yards and finished with 225 attempts and finished with 1,100 yards, would any of you be complaining at the number we just brought him back at? No, thank you. You would not be mad at that. You'd be doing backflips. So, I'm just saying. That's not as bad when you put it in perspective. The man didn't even have 200 attempts. But he was 8 yards away from 900. Just saying. So, right? Who would have known what he would have done with 19 more attempts to get? He could have got to 1,000 yards with 19 more attempts just on 200 carries. So we don't know. So I want the Raheem, the Dream one is a good signing. I can't hate on that. And I don't think it's fair for you guys to. Now, let's go into the second one here. Jeff Wilson, he came back. It's a 2-year with a max value of $8.2 million per source, according to Adam Schefter. So, this to me you could criticize a little bit more because he kind of slowed down a little bit near the end there, and but at the end of the day, again, the value. And again, he averaged 4.9 yards per attempt, right? 176 yards. 176 carries, 860 yards. So, I'm just saying. I mean, between the two of these guys, we got over 1,700 yards between the two of them on about just under 360 attempts. And now you look at the cost, and they're getting them back together for the cost of probably what a Kareem Hunt would have costed you. Right? So, I see where people want to criticize Jeff Wilson in terms of he slowed down a little bit, but Raheem, the Dream, kept the legs moving. I get that, but you look at them combined in that committee. Look at how cheap that committee is. And I'm going to tell you, they're going to add a running back in the draft. Trust me. They're going to add a running back in the draft. Anyone telling you different, I don't know what to... So... at the price we brought these guys back at, am I really, really going to sit here and get up in front of you guys and start shedding tears. I was telling all of you yesterday, and I was telling people privately, it's just people just working themselves up over these big name running backs out there. Now we'll get into Cook because we did check into Cook, but from what I'm understanding, Minnesota doesn't want to move him unless they get a trade that makes them have to. And so because of that, the price for Dalvin Cook, the Dolphins just were not willing to pay. And it wasn't Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook would have, restructured and made it friendly coming here. Dalvin Cook was not the issue. Minnesota wanted what they wanted for Dalvin Cook, and the Miami Dolphins were not willing to pay that price, period. So that's it. And now when you look at, running back, there's options out there, and we'll see. The draft has been telling you guys the draft is so deep. The draft is just unbelievably deep. So this is what Barry Jackson did say about running back. He said after talks with the Vikings on Cook, the Dolphins moved on and keep same backfield together. Mostert and Wilson tied for 11th in the NFL in yards per carry average last season at 4.9. Dolphins opt for status quo over expensive pursuit of Eckler, Henry, etc. And this was him quote tweeting himself when he said per source earlier in the day. That was at about 7 a.m. Per source, Dolphins, after initial inquiries with Vikings, were not anticipating trade for Dalvin Cook, at least as of a.m. This could change if Vikings decide to do something with him. Fins appreciate his skills. As for now, search continues for a back to pair with Mostert. So they did their due diligence. Again, I heard the price was just too high because they don't feel forced to have to move Dalvin Cook right now. So they did their due diligence. Didn't like the asking price because Minnesota didn't feel forced to move him. And there you go. And there you have it. And we sit where we sit. I still think this running back class is so like, what if a guy like Devin A-Chain is sitting there? Like, think of the guys that are going to be in a, like, this is a good draft class, man. This is a good draft class. People need to realize there's going to be options available here. So, it makes sense. Shore everything up and then draft a tight end and a running back and fill it. But we got to do something with this offensive line. We got to add depth. But like I said, don't expect big names. Expect tier 2 guys. And that should have been the expectation all along. So, all right. We did it yesterday. Let's do it here. Here is Barry Jackson's day 2 legal tampering free agency tracker update day by day, hour by hour, whatever. News by news. At 9:15 a.m., he updated and said Duke Riley's new Dolphins deal is for 2 years and could be worth up to $5 million. Again, quantity over quality, right? Look at that. Look at how much money they just like. They're just spreading it around. He got a $1.2 million signing bonus, and $2.2 million is guaranteed. Miami would walk away after a year without much financial penalty, which is how they structured the Mike White deal and several contracts last season. 9:25 a.m. Day 1 passed without the Dolphins signing either Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Miami has shown interest in keeping both. Both players also have shown an interest in returning, but the non-action strongly suggests the sides haven't agreed on compensation, at least as early as Tuesday morning. In fact, not a single one of the 42 restricted on free agent running backs had agreed to terms as of 9:25 a.m. on Monday. Minnesota reportedly have fielded interest in Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook, who would immediately become a serious Dolphins option if the Vikings parted ways with him. But there has been nothing firm to suggest yet that the Vikings will dump him. NFL Network said they're expected to keep him. It's difficult to see the Dolphins meeting the contract demands of Austin Eckler, who wants more than the $6.2 million he's owed next season, and has asked the Chargers for permission to seek a trade. Tennessee reportedly would consider dealing Derrick Henry, but he also comes with a high price tag of $10.5 million salary next season. The top free agent running backs remain beyond Mostert and Wilson are Miles Sanders. Rashad Penny ended up going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Devin Singletary, Jamal Williams is still out there. You got to watch the Bills. They're monitoring all these backs too, right? 9:30. Monday wasn't active for tight end class. Only 2 were signed, Josh Oliver and Chris Manhertz. The Dolphins, with only 2 tight ends under contract, Durham Smythe and Tanner Connor still have plenty of options. Dallas is well-run to Dalton Schultz, cannot be ruled out, but he's going to be too much money, so I would rule him out because of the money. Guys like Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, Robert Tonyan, Irv Smith, Jordan Atkins, and Foster Moreau out there. If Miami cannot find someone at the price point in the next few days, it could wait for value signing later in the offseason. So we'll see how that plays out. I still think the draft is a target there. The Dolphins have about 15 to 17 million in cap space. We'll know the precise figure when David Long's 2-year, $11 million contract hits. The Dolphins were at $29 million after restructuring Chubb, Armstead, and Hill. They acquired Jalen Ramsey, but restructured his contract to drop his hit from $17 million to $4.1. Contracts for Salvon Ahmed, Mike White, Duke Riley dropped the cap space to about $20 million. Long's contract likely leaves Miami in the 15 to 17 million range, and we saw it's about 17. More space can be created among other ways by restructuring Jerome Baker or Emmanuel Ogba, extended Wilkins, and lowering his $10.7 million cap hit for 2023, and $13.6 million in cap space will be freed up on June 1st when Byron Jones's contract comes off the books. The Dolphins have monitoring this situation with Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook. They've spoken to the Vikings, according to a source. NFL Networking Viking reporter Darren Wolfson have said he's likely to stay with the Vikings, due $10.4 million next season with 3 years on his contract. So then they signed Mostert, obviously at 11:10 a.m. and he just went over the numbers of it. And then at 11:25. The Dolphins, after inquiries with the Vikings, were not anticipating a trade for running back Dalvin Cook, at least as of this morning, according to a source. That could change if the Vikings decide to do something. So there you go. And he has 3 years left on his contract. $10.4 million in 2023, $11.9 million in 2024, and $12.9 in 2025. 1:30 p.m. The Dolphins previously inquired about Vikings running back Dalvin Cook. Appears unlikely they will do the same with Austin Eckler after the Chargers granted him permission to seek a trade. So there you go. He's saying they're not even going to check in on Eckler. So some teams have an aversion to paying a running back $7 million or more a season. The Dolphins haven't spent a ton on the position in recent years, but did years ago with Ricky Williams. So there you go. He's saying from what he's hearing, we're not even going to check in on Eckler. Right tackle remains something of a conundrum for Miami. The Dolphins still have hope that Austin Jackson can be effective at the position, but his durability is a concern in the wake of ankle injuries, sidelining him 15 games last season. Brandon Shell, who started most of the team's games at right tackle, remains in the mix for Miami. Kendall Lamb, who gave the Dolphins good snaps at left tackle January 1st against New England before an ankle injury, also remains a free agent. And then, got George Fant, Jermaine Illuminor still out there. Some other names still out there. Terrence Steele is a restricted free agent. Isaiah Wynn, Brandon Shell, Cam Fleming, Riley Reif. So Chris Hubbard's still out there. Josh Nijman's still out there, but he's a RFA. So 2:30. He mentioned obviously Wilson was now signed. That means Miami is retaining its top 3 running backs from a year ago. And they appear likely to bypass pursuing a back via trade. So there you go. The draft makes the most sense right now. At 3 p.m., the Dolphins have turned their attention to some of their own free agents today. Their 5 biggest remaining needs in the view here is right tackle, veteran safety with starting experience to supplement Javon Holland and Brandon Jones. A tight end to share the position with Durham Smythe or start ahead of him. 2 backup edge players. And adding backup offensive linemen because everyone except Robert Jones are free agents. So we'll see. At 5 p.m., there was some speculation on a national podcast on Tuesday that Miami might look to trade Xavier Howard. I do not expect that to happen. The idea of landing Ramsey was to have 2 skilled cover corners, not 1. What's more, Howard's 2023 Dolphins cap hit would rise from 10.1 to 31.1 if he were traded before June 1st. His 10.1 cap hit would drop to 8.1 if you're traded after June 1st. But that's such a small difference that any savings would be totally offset by money spent on a new starting quarterback to replace Howard. So any suggestion that Howard could be dealt seems illogical. So there you go. Aaron Rodgers will make his first public comments of the week on Pat McAfee's show tomorrow at 1 p.m. They added Alan Lazard to stupid money, $11 million. Thank God we didn't add Rodgers if he's asking for, he was asking for stupid. 7 p.m. per a source. Andrew Van Ginkel has a visit lined up with another team and is drawing interest from multiple teams. The Dolphins have shown interest in re-signing him, but there's likely will be more opportunity for playing time and more money elsewhere. A return to Miami hasn't been ruled out, but opportunities with other teams are being explored. Miami has a lot of money tied up to Bradley Chubb and Emmanuel Ogbah. Van Ginkel has been highly productive, but he lost playing time last season because of the additions of Melvin Ingram. And I've heard Melvin Ingram's willing to, could be a post-June 1st re-addition. And an increased role for Jalen Phillips. The Dolphins need to add one or two veteran edge players as depth behind Chubb and Phillips and Ogbah. And I do think Ingram's going to come back on the cheap. So those are the updates. And by the way, Ingram coming back on the cheap is my take, not Barry's. But I've heard, I heard yesterday, expected to come back after June 1st. Expected to be an addition then. So we'll see how that plays out. But man, tomorrow free agency opens at 4 p.m. Listen, I will be live if anything big breaks. And then me, Richmond, and Ballgame will be live later on tonight. So you might get a double dose of me tomorrow, depending on what happens. But yeah, I mean, taking care of our own a little bit right now, spreading the money around, right? And, safeties keep coming off the board, and Jordan Poyer sitting right there. And, even New England, they signed Jabril Peppers. We need to, I think another underrated, we need to sign a return man, right? Another interesting name to watch is Matt Feeler got released by the Chargers. And Frank Smith has a connection to Matt Feeler. So that could be a guard name to watch tomorrow potentially. So, again, I do expect things to pick up tomorrow, right? It's going to be a little bit of a frenzy tomorrow after 4 p.m. especially. And even before that, you'll hear stuff starting to come through. So, in my opinion, Chris Grier has done a very good job. He's not gotten caught overpaying in a trade or money for anyone available, whether through free agency or via trade. Now, I think he should have been on Caleb McGarry at that cost. That solves a lot of issues, man. And that's a $11.5 million fix, only over 3 years. So I can only imagine how they could play with the money. So, hey, I'm not going to sit here and hate. You look at the money we brought back our backfield for. Go add a guy in the draft, and we'll be happy. Right? Just don't add a jabroni in the draft. That's all. So, we got money to make here. We got things we can do. I mean, they could turn around and say, listen, we want to add more depth at edge, but we don't want to carry the hit Ogbah has and designate him as a, because they've made his salary tradable. So, back to Matt Feeler. Matt Feeler can play right tackle or left guard. Two of our weakest points. And again, the connection to Frank Smith. I think this might be a name you might see come tomorrow that the Dolphins are tied to. So, hey, at least we're not being held at gunpoint by a quarterback right now. That's all I know. This man said, go get me Alan Lazard. They paid him $11 million. He said, go get me Randall Cobb. And then on his list, he had OBJ. Acting like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore ain't there. I don't get it. So, man, there's a lot to play out. We haven't even entered day one of free agency. I know everyone wants their stuff done quickly and they want to know who we're getting quickly. But patience is a virtue. Wait, young grasshoppers. Let's let this play out. And I'm sure, by the end of the week, we're all going to be smiling like kids in a candy shop, right? Because already I'm loving how they're allocating the money, making smart moves. The last thing I want to see us do is be stupid. And I do not think they're being stupid right now. So, let it play out. We've still got tons of time. Remember, in 19 and a half hours, free agency officially opens. Free agency officially opens. So, be prepared. All right? I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. If anything breaks, I'll be live in the day for y'all if anything serious breaks. All right? Tomorrow, if whether anything breaks and I'm live in the day or not, I'll be live at night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Me, Richmond Webb, and Mr. Ballgame will be recapping everything going on from the tampering period to free agency, day one of free agency. And then day two of free agency, I'll be live if anything breaks. And then at night, me and Neil Driscoll will be live. He'll be returning, so be on the lookout for that. So we got a lot coming your way. I appreciate all of y'all for coming through. Keep your eyes on them tweets and those ears to them streets in free agency, baby. All right? I will see all of y'all on the next one. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming through. You already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day. See y'all tomorrow. Who knows when? Dun, dun, dun. Take it easy, guys.